butt hurts, cries, and a dark shadow falls over this troll. From the ashes of a once great fandom has risen a meme, an LOL that must be liked. We look to the airways for a vindicator, someone to strike fear in the dark basement of the parents who created him. The battle between fan and smart has begun. With a head on his shoulders stands the smart fan, a speaker of truths, with a voice of silence and a radio show of justice. This is Ring Rust.
For those who may or may not be listening, for the first time, I wouldn't say I hope you're not listening for the first time. I'm sure there's always going to be someone listening somewhere along the line for the first time. And basically I just read wrestling news or results or whatever, and then I play a song appropriate to that news or results or whatever. So it's one of those weeks where there's no show to review and no show to preview. Next weekend, though, is NXT TakeOver from Brooklyn, and that's Saturday, and then Sunday is SummerSlam, which is going to be quite the full weekend for people who are fans of the product. Not necessarily everybody is a fan of the product, but if you're not a fan of WWE, then it's going to be pretty much a weekend like any other for you, I guess, where you're not watching WWE. So anyway, but speaking of WWE and NXT, Sasha Banks recently sat down with Chris Jericho for his Talk is Jericho podcast, discussing her early love of wrestling, getting to FCW, breaking barriers in NXT, and Diva Revolution, and more. Well, it's not the whole thing, I don't think. It's like a synopsis of the overall interview. Being told to, quote, wrestle like a diva, unquote, in the early days. She started out with Paige, Summer Rae, and Emma. They were told to wrestle like divas, hair-pulling, catfights, no punches, no forearms, no kicking, no striking. But then Sarah Del Rey come in as a coach and turn things around, training them like the guys. Sasha says it speaks volumes about Sarah's skills, that she was the WWE's first female coach despite having never worked with the WWE before. Growing up watching TNA matches, that's not Total Nonstop Action, but the other TNA. She wasn't into the era of bra and panties matches and Playboy covers, but she believed she would have to settle for it because she wanted to wrestle for WWE. When she got to NXT, though, she realized that she couldn't settle for it. She didn't know how she would get there, though, because she wasn't confident in her looks as a kid. Coming up with her boss character, she was in the background during the era of Emma, Paige, and Summer. She would get frustrated that she wasn't being used, so she put in work in her character and came up with the boss. Tyler Breeze told her to make a list of characters and figure out what fit her the best. She drew inspiration from her cousin Snoop Dogg and the likes of Nicki Minaj. Bonding with Snoop Dogg. As her first cousin, their fathers are brothers. They've always bonded over wrestling. She used to beg him to take her along to wrestling shows, and he brought her to 2 WrestleManias and a Raw. Having the connection made her feel cool as a kid. She'd take friends along to his concerts and give them his autographs. Sasha found a connection to Eddie Guerrero as well, as his was the first match she saw. It hooked her to wrestling. She says she wants to be the female version of Eddie. When living in Minnesota, she attended the first show after his death and felt it was one of the most heartbreaking moments. She had made a sign for Eddie, went to the arena, and found out he had passed by seeing signs that read R.I.P. Eddie. At first she thought it was some sort of reference to him wrestling The Undertaker, but a fellow fan eventually approached her and told her about his death. She had wanted to wrestle since she was about 10 years old. She had messaged wrestling schools looking for someone to train her, but no one would train her until she turned 16 or 18. When she turned 18, she finally got started. She says she had no plan B. She trained in Boston with Chaotic Championship Wrestling, winning 3 free months of training through a fantasy camp. She was the only girl trainee, so she worked exclusively with guys. She says she was fortunate to win the free training, as she didn't have the dime to pay for it. And rather than go through the whole thing, you can read the rest. you can go on to, well, what you should probably do is go to the CHMR's Ring Rust page on Facebook. Give that page a like if you want to. It's 2 or 3 posts down. So then just click on that and give it a read, and you can even listen to the Chris Jericho podcast. There's a link right at the bottom of the post.
And I quote,
check out the TMZ of professional wrestling news. And I quote on Facebook. All the latest news with some attitude, new and classic wrestling videos, and so much more.
Can I have your attention, please? I just received an email from the Raw general manager.
You are listening to Ring Rust Redux on Jabronology TV. It was announced earlier this week that the Guinness World Records would honor The Undertaker's legendary streak. In case you had been living under a rock for the past 30-plus years, The Undertaker has a legendary streak of the greatest stage of them all, WrestleMania. He has bested his opponents a total of 22 times, losing only one match in his career to the Beast Incarnate, Brock Lesnar. What's most impressive about the streak, however, is the fact that his only loss came at last year's WrestleMania. That's right, folks. Undertaker was 21-0 before someone beat him. This makes his feat even more impressive, as some still question whether or not Taker lost the match, or if Lesnar just capitalized on an aging old man. So this is actually from Wrestling Fanatics Only, looks like, .com. So if you want to read more about that, then pop on over to, I made it easy for you, go to the CHMR's Ring Rust page. Click on like if you want to, and then scroll on down to the story about The Undertaker and read the whole story there. You're listening to Ring Rust Redux on Jabronology TV. Reading the story now from sports-kings.com. I guess it's another opinion sort of thing, not really news as such, just something someone put together. I thought it was interesting. It's no secret that there's a beginning and an end to every title reign in the WWE. The real secret is how it will end. While many fans in the WWE universe are predicting that John Cena will be the one to end Seth Rollins' 3-month reign as WWE champion at SummerSlam, others see another superstar snatching the title away from Rollins. Let's look at the John Cena possibility first. Cena's only one championship away from breaking Ric Flair's all-time world title reign, a storyline that WWE might want to exploit somewhere down the line. With that being said, a storyline like that is better suited for the Royal Rumble or WrestleMania 32 than it is for pay-per-views like Hell in a Cell, Survivor Series, or Night of Champions. That's not to say that the feud between John Cena and Seth Rollins can't last that long, but it probably wouldn't be a good idea to keep Cena in the spotlight for that amount of time. That's especially true if you consider that Cena has been doing a spectacular job with the United States title, Open Challenge, and would be better suited for that spot instead. With that being said, it's unlikely that John will be the one to unseat Seth at SummerSlam. WWE's better off saving a title run for during WrestleMania season and letting someone else snatch the title away from Rollins in the meantime. This also allows WWE to end Rollins' reign without just lose clean to Cena. Obviously, this person doesn't even have a journalism degree of any kind, or knows how to write, or... Next, there's Sheamus. He won the Money in the Bank briefcase earlier this year and has been doing pretty well as a heel lately. He's vicious, great on a microphone, and has garnered a much better response from the WWE Universe. While these should all be reasons for him to unseat Rollins as champion, it's not the time and place for him to do so. WWE will most likely want to bide their time with Sheamus and use him as a backup plan for later in 2016. This isn't to say that a Money in the Bank cash-in is an impossibility in 2015, but WWE has a lot better options on the table for the title picture right now. One of those options being the Beast Incarnate, Brock Lesnar. It's pretty obvious that Brock is out for revenge on Seth, especially after Rollins cashed in the Money in the Bank contract at WrestleMania and took the title away from him. That fact alone should be enough for WWE to set those two superstars on a collision course for later this year. Only this time, Lesnar will win the belt from the former architect of the Shield. Another thing that leads us to believe that Lesnar will be the one to unseat Rollins this year is the fact that WWE will most likely want to have Cena versus Lesnar at WrestleMania 32 for the title. This would be a great place for Cena to earn his 16th world title and surpass Ric Flair on the most championships list. This would also be ideal for WWE because it would allow the company to revisit the feud between Cena and Lesnar that was never fully resolved last year. The Chain Gang Commander was never able to beat the Beast Incarnate in any of their contests last year, making a win this year's WrestleMania over Lesnar all that more realistic and possible. In the end, it's up to WWE how Seth Rollins will finally lose his coveted title. While John Cena taking it off of him is a popular theory amongst fans, especially with the dominant streak of the C Nation leader has been in the past few months, it's still very unlikely that WWE would want to end Rollins' reign in that particular way. Doing so would only severely hurt Rollins and show the WWE Universe that they are still thinking about the present in the company instead of the future. So, looking forward to what WWE comes up with in the future and see who they decide they're going to crown as the next champion when they're done with Seth Rollins. Well, not done with him, but I guess when they want him to lose the title. You're listening to Ring Rust Redux on Jabronology TV.
Hello, friends out there in Radio Land. Place your hands upon the radio right now. This is Reverend Billy C. Wirtz from the First House of Polyester Worship down here in the sunny state of Florida, telling you that you're listening to an oasis of decency in today's cultural wasteland of FM radio. That's right, friends. You're listening to Mun Radio 93.5 CHMR-FM, your only station that matters on the FM dial. Amen.
So once again, if you want to follow along with the story I'm about to read, it's kind of a short story. It's like fits on one screen. But if you want to pop on over to the CHMR's Ring Rust page on Facebook, give that page a like if you want, and scroll on down to the WWE has officially announced a Divas match for SummerSlam. Team BAD, Team Bella, and PCB will face off in a 3-team elimination match. The match was announced live on Raw as well as on Twitter. The match could serve as a big turning point for the Diva Revolution, as one team will finally be able to claim superiority, in theory, anyway, as long as it doesn't go to like a 9-way brawl or something, or it gets down to the last 3. Is it elimination? Yeah, elimination, okay. So it gets down to now, hang on, does that mean if someone's, let's say, for instance, Paige pins Nikki Bella, does that mean Team Bella's eliminated or just Nikki Bella? Because it's kind of, we'll see if does it give the rules? Not really. Shows a picture and stuff. Anyway, SummerSlam takes place August 23rd live on the WWE Network. And on pay-per-view if you're inclined to pay more money for it, and nothing if you're not inclined to pay any money for it. But, that's somewhat underhanded, and I no longer really endorse that kind of behavior. I mean, it's not even so much legality of it, it's the antisocialness of it. You're sitting by yourself in your bedroom or your office or your kitchen or your living room or whatever, watching wrestling. You may or may not be enjoying it, but I can pretty well guarantee you'd enjoy it more if you were watching it with friends. So watch it with friends. That's my recommendation to you. Find out if there might even be a local movie theater playing it, like here in town. I myself will probably be visiting hashtag Cineplex City. That's not what it's called, but I just, it's the Suplex City thing that Brock Lesnar said at WrestleMania, and I'm just running with it because the movie theater ends in Plex and Suplex City. And anyway, I made a funny. You're listening to Ring Rust Redux on Jabronology TV. One of the pages I've done, belts.s5.com. I think you can pretty well guess what's on it. It's a collection of various pictures, it's like numbers in the hundreds now, I think, of various pictures of belts that I've collected over my time as a wrestling fan. I should specify, I don't own those belts. I went looking for wrestling championships, pictures of wrestling championships on the internet, found pictures of belts I didn't have, took those pictures. The pictures are the things that I didn't have, not the belts. I only actually have one belt, one actual replica belt. So, other than like ones that go on action figures and stuff, but that's the only one that fits on a human being. I've only got one of those. The pictures are the things that I'm collecting. I'm collecting the pictures of the belts. I'm not collecting belts. I wish I had all those belts. Because I can't tell you the number of times someone would message me after I post that and say, let me know if you want to sell any of those belts. Like, I don't own the belts. I'm just posting pictures of belts. You know, it's a page of like hundreds of pictures of belts. It's stuff from WWE and WCW and ECW and AWA, NWA, even some local wrestling. So, you know. My favorite belt of all time, though, is the Winged Eagle, the one that they introduced back from WrestleMania 4. First one by Randy Savage and last one by Stone Cold Steve Austin at WrestleMania 14. You were listening to Ring Rust Redux on Jabronology TV. Well, I try not to use insider terms. I generally don't use babyface or heel if I can manage it, because there's no real need to. You understand when I say good guy or bad guy, or you know. So you will understand. I make it a little more interesting. I throw a little bit more color into it by calling good guys Dudley Do-Rights and calling bad guys Snidely Whiplashes. Because worst case scenario, you got to look those two people up and find out who they are and why I would call good guys Dudley Do-Rights and bad guys Snidely Whiplashes. But go educate yourself. It's classic cartoons, so go find out what I'm talking about. But anyway, at any rate, I did a Movie Maker video, which I posted on YouTube, using that song, of my top 10 SummerSlam moments. So, yeah. Branching off now from the CHMR's Ring Rust page to one of the other pages I regularly post news to. That's something I've been doing a lot less lately, posting. What I used to do is I used to post all the news to the Ring Rust page, and then I'd share it from the Ring Rust page to the other pages I'm an admin on, and that I have some sort of vested interest in. But I've been getting people, quote, female dogging, unquote, about stuff that I post, because sometimes it's not necessarily up to date, or sometimes it's an opinion, like the last thing I read. Someone might say, you know, that's not news, that's an opinion. You're not posting news, you're posting an opinion. And then I just stopped, you know. So, well, maybe I just won't post to that page, but I would prefer to post all the pages. So, you know, so I switched from the CHMR's Ring Rust page to the And Do I Quote page, which is what I used to call the TMZ of professional wrestling news and videos and stuff. It's the thing I played between those first two songs that I played today. So that's the first promo I usually play during each episode. So what I posted here was some stuff from Kayfabe News, Unreal News from Unreal Sport, I think is what they call it. Anyway, so if you're a fan of Kayfabe News and you know it's not serious, it's not meant to be serious, it's not intended to be serious, but you can go ahead and take it seriously if you and the other 75% of online wrestling news readers end up doing. I can't believe, oh my God, that's such a horrible idea. I'm going to go on the internet and complain. You should see the news that Kayfabe News posted. Quick. Professional wrestler Jack Swagger was stunned to find out today, while surfing the Superstars section of WWE.com, that he is still gainfully employed by the company. The patriotic grappler, who was last seen on mainstream WWE programming in 2014, alongside xenophobic redneck zealot Zeb Coulter, did a double take when he saw himself listed among the current WWE roster. What the, said Swagger, who could have sworn somebody in WWE wished him his best in his future endeavors last spring. Well, I'll be danged. Swagger's exclamation of surprise awoke Coulter, who had been dozing in a rocking chair on the front porch of a cozy bed and breakfast the duo operate in a converted chapel. We the steeple. 'Cause that's we the people is the saying. According to one backstage source, WWE's creative team is keeping Swagger on contract because they've been looking for someone to package as a patriotic blonde American hero ever since name deleted vanished from existence. So I don't know what. Who are you talking about? Are they talking about that floating Mr. America mask that was wrestling Roddy Piper in a meme a couple of months or so ago? Yeah, maybe. Maybe that guy, that name deleted individual, should get down on his knees and pray for gainful employment with WWE again. You're listening to Ring Rust Redux on Jabronology TV. Because, shut up, I was a fan of The Wrestler, and that sounds like it's practically straight out of the soundtrack. Now we're going to olderawrestling.me, not even .com. Anyway, there's a couple of things wrong with what I'm about to read, actually. It says the top 15 worst wrestlers of the 1990s list, and there's 14 people on it. Pardon me. Let's see if I can get this on the mic. That was a face palm. So let's just run down. I don't think it's like from best to worst or from worst to best, or it's just, worst to even worst, I guess, because it's the 15 worst. Well, it's the 14 worst. You can add your own to the list if you don't hear them on here. Let's see how many of these you can guess. Number 1, they have listed here, the Brooklyn Brawler, a.k.a. Abe Knuckleball Schwartz. Number 2, Glacier. Well, I think maybe I should quantify. It isn't worst wrestlers, worst wrestling characters. So, pretty much everybody on this list, I think, can be found on WrestleCrap.com. So, yeah. Glacier, I think, wasn't really a bad wrestler. He was just a bad character. But he did the most with that character. So, Sick Boy's number 3. I don't remember much about Sick Boy. I remember he was in Raven's Flock. And I can't remember a second thing about Sick Boy. Norman Smiley, I have to disagree with that. Number 4, Norman Smiley. He just is, I'm not even sure that was a character. He kind of just was goofy and doing the big wiggle and just going for a no. I don't know if I don't think I'd really call him a bad wrestler. Bad character, yes. Next on the list is a bad person, in my opinion. The guy I have christened Liz Killer, Lex Luger, at number 6. Number 7, fake Razor Ramon. Okay, that would explain. I kind of just glanced at it. It's like, why was Razor Ramon on this list? Okay, fake Razor Ramon. Anyway, number 8 is Tatanka. Bad character, I suppose. Someone's watching Dancing with Wolves and they heard the native word for buffalo and said, hey, what a great name for a wrestler. Let's do that. I'm sure that will put asses in seats. Number 9, Mentor. Number 10, the Yeti. I don't really remember anything about the Yeti except what I read in the first WrestleCrap book. Was it the first WrestleCrap book or was it in the WCW one? I don't remember. Probably in both. Number 11, Ahmed Johnson. But, he filled a demographic, I guess is one way to put it. Number 12, Bastion Booger. Number 13, Earthquake / the Shark. So, well, the Shark Attack, yes, was a bad character. Earthquake, And number 14, top of the list or bottom of the list or whatever you want to call it, because again, it's a top 15 list with only 14 people on it. And hang on, one more time. Is Sid Vicious. I don't know if it's specifying, it says Sid Vicious, so that would be probably from WCW, I should imagine. You're listening to Ring Rust Redux on Jabronology TV. So the last thing I'm going to read from today is another story from Kayfabe News. Professional wrestling commentator Michael Cole, best known for his overuse of the term vintage, surprised friends today by employing the word to aptly describe a glass of 1974 Cabernet Sauvignon. Vintage wine, hollered Cole. startling other patrons of a winery tour in Northern California where Cole was vacationing with colleague and life partner John Bradshaw Layfield. Hang on a second, what are they implying? Cole was referring to a glass of Napa Valley Sterling Vineyards Cabernet Sauvignon Reserve, not, as is typically the case, to a signature maneuver performed by WWE superstar, for example, Vintage Orton or Vintage Kalisto, or Vintage Rookie making his NXT debut. Which would be kind of funny if he said it exactly that way. Vintage NXT Rookie making his debut. Where'd Michael Cole come from? He's not on this show. What's going on? The surprised sommelier nodded and assured Cole that the wine was indeed a lowly vintage, but that the winery discouraged guests from shouting about it. Cole then remarked that the wine has, quote, an unctuous nose and a velvety finish that comes out of nowhere, unquote. You're listening to Ring Rust Redux on Gerbranology TV. That's it for another show, kiddies. Check me out on Facebook, where you can keep track of all the news that's right on the mark, from around ringside to the latest concerts. See you at the shows. Later days.
This is 93.5 CHMR-FM.